Today, I want to talk about something I've been noticing of late, not just in others, but in myself. And it's this strange fatigue that doesn't come from lack of sleep or overwork, but from a deeper place. It's a kind of quiet exhaustion that sits just under the surface of our lives. You may recognize it. You're not exactly unhappy, but you're not really content either. You're doing all the right things. You're maybe even more than most. You have your morning routines, your habits, your systems. You've read the books. You're working on yourself. You're on the path of growth. And yet, something feels off. There's a lingering sense that no matter how much you do, it's never quite enough. For years, I was on that path too. I chased every version of self improvement I could find. My mornings were scripted like a productivity manual. Wake up early, meditate, journal, hydrate, read 10 pages, write a few pages, stretch, and plan the day. My days were optimized for output. I used habit trackers, I used task managers and calendars. I consumed books on focus, on resilience, and peak performance like they were candy. Every part of my life felt like a project to be managed. I told myself I was growing, and maybe I was, but I was also quietly burning out. This is the paradox no one warns you about, that in the pursuit of becoming better, you can actually become more disconnected from yourself. That in trying to improve every corner of your life, you may accidentally convince yourself that you, as you are somehow insufficient. That every day must be maximized, that every moment must be made meaningful, that rest must be earned, that stillness is indulgent, that you should always be working towards a future version of you that's more productive, that's more successful, more enlightened. It's a beautiful idea, but it's also kind of a trap because growth is supposed to feel expansive. Instead, for many of us, it's beginning to feel like pressure, like an unspoken demand to always be striving. The subtle voice that says, you could be doing more, you haven't arrived yet, you're falling behind everyone else. So we dress it up with good intentions. We say we are building discipline, we are cultivating resilience, we are becoming the best version of ourselves. But beneath that, sometimes, is fear, the fear of being ordinary, the fear of stagnation, the fear that if we are not constantly improving, we are somehow regressing. Self help becomes a full time job. It starts innocently enough. One book changes your life. One podcast opens your mind. One morning routine gives you clarity. But then you chase the next idea and the next idea. You're tweaking your routine weekly. You're always adjusting. You're always refining. And soon, every activity is measured. Your sleep is measured. Your steps, your screen time, your heart rate, your productivity score. And while all of these tools can be helpful in some way, they also carry a hidden message that you, in your natural state, need fixing. That you are a machine that needs constant upgrades. That stillness is wasteful and contentment is complacency. But the truth that I've come to believe after years of walking this path is that you are not a machine. You are not a problem to be solved. You are not a project in need of constant improvement. You are a human being. You're messy, you're emotional, you are imperfect and enough. We've confused self improvement with self acceptance. Improvement says, I love myself when, fill in the blanks. Acceptance, on the other hand, says, I love myself even as I grow. Improvement can be rigid, it can be perfectionist and punishing. Acceptance is spacious, it is forgiving and real. And the best part, true growth often happens after you accept yourself, not before. I think many of us are tired not because we are doing too little, but because we're trying too hard to be someone else. Someone perfectly optimized, someone always motivated, and someone who eats clean, who thinks clearly, who speaks mindfully, and never scrolls mindlessly. But that person is not real. That's an ideal sold to us by productivity culture, by wellness influencers, and the booming industry of self help. What started as a path to clarity has turned into another performance, another version of keeping up. And what is worse, we are not just performing for others anymore, we are performing for ourselves. So we curate our own lives like they're case studies in excellence. We look at our own behavior through the lens of an algorithm. How efficient was I today? How aligned was I today? How intentional was I today? and it becomes relentless. And it's not just exhausting, it's also very lonely. Because what gets lost in this pursuit of constant self betterment is joy, it's spontaneity, it's place, rest, presence, the ability to waste a few hours without guilt, the freedom to eat a dessert without rationalizing it as a cheat day, the simple act of sitting with yourself, not to fix or optimize yourself, but to simply be. You don't hear this enough in the self help world, but sometimes growth looks like slowing down. Sometimes it also looks like doing less. Sometimes it looks like saying no to the new habit or the new framework or the new 5 step system to become better version of yourself. Sometimes it means walking away from the obsession with becoming better and walking towards a life that actually feels good. It took me a long time to realize this, that not all growth is visible. Not all progress is measurable. You can be growing in silence. You can be healing without journaling about it. You can be becoming wiser without reading a single quote or a single book. You can be learning without labeling it as personality development. And you can be living meaningfully without ever documenting it. We're not here to be efficient. We are here to be human. We're here to feel, to connect, to stumble, to repair, to laugh, to fail, to try again. Sometimes I think the most radical form of self growth in today's world is self kindness. To look at yourself without conditions or scorecards and say, I am just okay right now, as I am. Not because you've arrived at some mythical end state, but because you've remembered the truth that you are never behind to begin with. Now, I am not saying routines or habits are bad. I still love a quiet morning, a good book, and a walk in nature. I still reflect, plan, and work on things that matter to me. But I no longer use those things as proof of my worth. I no longer believe that I have to do them to become lovable. They are not obligations, they are invitations. And if I miss them, I don't spiral. I don't think I've failed. I've simply lived. One of the most liberating moments in my life was when I realized I didn't need to become someone else to live fully. I just needed to become more honest, more present, more attuned to what I already loved, already valued, and already believed. The best version of yourself is not hiding behind 100 new habits. The best version of yourself is already within you, waiting to be trusted. If you've been feeling tired, not just physically, but soul tired, even though you're doing everything right, then this is your reminder. You don't need to do more. You don't need to do less. You may need to stop measuring every part of your life. You may need to unlearn the belief that you are only as good as your progress. You may need to rest, not just physically, but spiritually, mentally. So give yourself permission to stop performing, stop fixing, stop upgrading, and let yourself be, just be. Sit with the silence, trust the stillness. You might just discover that growth, personal growth, doesn't always looks like a hustle. Sometimes it looks like softness. Sometimes it looks like letting go. And maybe, just maybe, the goal was never to become perfect. Maybe the goal was to become real. So here's my question that I want to leave you with. What would your life look like if you stopped trying to improve it for just 1 week? What would shift if you stopped trying to optimize everything and just allowed yourself to live, to love, to rest, to create? Not because it's productive, but because it's meaningful. Maybe that's where true self growth begins. Not in effort, but in ease. Not in control, but in trust. Not in becoming someone else, but in returning to the real you, yourself. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who might be caught in the same loop. Not because they need more advice, but because they might need a reminder that it's okay to pause, it's okay to feel lost, and okay to not always be improving. Sometimes being enough is the most powerful thing we can remember. Thank you for your time.